The Long Road by Wolfland. Chapter 15, Terminus, Part 1. Pokemon Trainer's Handbook, page 11. Simply reaching the Elite Four is no easy feat, but taking on these 4 trainers and the League Champion is another challenge in its own. Be sure you and your team are prepared to take on the strongest opponents you've ever faced. When Steven turned what became the final corner of Victory Road's long and winding cave system, he very nearly jumped for joy. He was almost sick of being underground. Almost. For when he started eating and sleeping at odd hours, which he was only aware of thanks to his watch, he knew he'd been underground for far too long. Not that he didn't enjoy the cool air and the peaceful silence, but there was something to be said for returning to the surface, to feel the sun on your face for just a little while before heading back into the depths again. A grin stretched across his lips as he finally caught sight of the distinct glow of daylight at the end of the passage. But with Cladle by his side, the sunlight that greeted them when they stepped out of the cave was anything but rejuvenating. Dusk was beginning to take hold of Evergrande City, and the setting sun splashed a blood-red hue across the towering structure of the League headquarters. Deep shadows sprawled across its finely manicured grounds, and Cladle shifted uneasily as it scanned the growing dark, still on edge from their trek through the caverns. Steven nearly jumped when Cladle gave a sudden squeal as a voice called out in greeting.
"Hey there! Congratulations! You made it!"
The ranger gave a friendly wave as he approached, yet Steven found himself hesitant to offer little more than a blank stare in return. It had been a while since he'd interacted with someone other than his own Pokemon, and people were never his forte to begin with. At Steven's awkward silence, the ranger gave him a once-over with a curious expression that clearly said he wanted to ask why exactly a trainer wearing a suit had stepped out of Victory Road. But he held his tongue, and instead held out a hand. "Your emergency beacon, please?" Proving he still at least understood human communication, Steven nodded and produced the device from his pack. The ranger logged the number from the beacon on his clipboard and gave a short laugh.
"Well, you won't be setting any speed record for getting through there, but that's not what really matters, right?"
The best Steven could muster was a silent nod, while Cladle gave the overly friendly ranger a wary look, and the man shook his head.
"Can't say I expected you to be too chatty. Most aren't when they get out. You're all set, though. Go ahead and head in. Get yourself a nice rest. You've earned it."
He tilted his cap over his shoulder towards the League building, before turning and heading back into the guard hut. With the ranger now back at his post, the ground stood silent and empty again, and Steven couldn't suppress a shiver. The elation of finally reaching the end of Victory Road had quickly disappeared, as the ominous emptiness of the second half of Evergrande City seemed to weigh heavy on his spirits. If it weren't for the promise of a good night's sleep on a proper mattress, he had half a mind to turn around and head right back into the tunnels behind him. Except that wasn't what they'd come so far to do. Resting a hand at his hip, the small quiver of his Pokeball stirred his feet to move once more. There was no turning back now. Setting his gaze on the pathway that sloped steadily up towards the League, he returned Cladle to its ball and strode forward through the growing dusk. As the sliding doors whirred shut behind him, Steven found himself staring once again. The lobby of the League building was an expansive space, towering a full 3 stories high, with a grand dual staircase that swept up to the second floor of the building. Finally tearing his gaze from the architecture of too much glass and polished marble, he spotted the familiar sight of Nurse Joy manning the check-in desk. "Welcome, trainer, to the Pokemon League. How can I help you today?" She smiled as he approached, taking in the way the fire in his eyes belied the dust that had gathered on his jacket, and gave a knowing smile. "You must be checking in." Steven straightened his posture a bit before nodding. "I am, yes." "I'll just need your trainer ID for registration, please." Sliding the card onto the countertop, Steven also placed his 6 Pokeballs next to it. "And if you could heal my team too?" Nurse Joy bobbed a quick nod. "Of course! We'll return them to you in the morning." At Steven's surprised look, she offered an explanation. "We do a thorough checkup on all Pokemon that will be undertaking the League Challenge. Victory Road takes its toll on both trainer and Pokemon, so to make the challenge fair, we give each trainer 10 days to rest and relax before making their official challenge. Until then, you will have a room here at the League." Joy slid his ID back across the counter, accompanied by a single key. "Your room will be on the 2nd floor. All amenities are in the east and west wings on the 1st floor, including the Pokemart and Training Center." He turned to follow the sweep of her hand to the left and right. "You can pick up your Pokemon from this desk in the morning. Please visit me again when you're ready to issue your official challenge. We hope you enjoy your stay, and best of luck." Joy bowed before gently placing Steven's team of 6 onto a tray and disappearing into the Poke Center behind the desk. His gaze lingered on the door she'd slipped through before regarding the key now resting in his palm. That was it. 10 days, and it would all be over, for better or for worse. It was a lot to weigh, but with an empty belt and an aching body, he resigned himself to rest for the night. He would take it all in the morning. He could afford one day to think things through. Sparing a glance back over his shoulder from the top of the stairs, he watched through the glass as the last sliver of sun slept beneath the horizon, draping a cloak of darkness across the Evergrande landscape. And for the first time since setting foot back on the surface, something welled up deep inside him. Evergrande spelled the end of the journey for most, holding the same sort of finality as the shadow that now gripped every corner of the island. But that growing swell of determination wouldn't be quashed. He wasn't most people, and his journey wouldn't end here, not if he and the 6 partners he trusted the most had anything to say about it. Releasing a white-knuckled grip on the railing, he turned and headed to find his quarters. As the door to his room clicked shut behind him, his pack was discarded on the floor, and suit jacket tossed over the nearest chair. Faintly sinking into the welcoming arms of the bed, he was asleep before his head even hit the pillow.